Hello, welcome back. My name is Katie, and today we're going to be doing some spring book recommendations. It's April, it's warm out, I want to talk about books. Let's get into it. I have lots of books to talk to you about. Here they all are. Now for me, spring means romance, nature, new beginnings, starting over. Thank you. I think a lot about fertility in the spring, like motherhood. All these things are spring to me. Rain is very spring. Those are the vibes. Let's get into it. Okay, book one. Live Oak with Moss by Walt Whitman. This is illustrated by Brian Selznick. These are poems that were kind of hidden in Leaves of Grass, and they are private reflections on Walt Whitman's appreciation and attraction to other men. And it is a beautiful, beautiful edition because we have these just like really, really cool illustrations. Also, we have pictures of the notebooks that Walt Whitman wrote the poems in originally. It's beautiful. We have a lot of nature imagery in the poems themselves. He's talking about the oak trees in Louisiana. I lived in Louisiana for 4 years. It brought back a lot of spring memories with Spanish moss hanging from oak trees. I would highly recommend this for a spring read. It is a quick read if you're just looking for something that has pretty pictures. You want to read some poetry. You want some nature and some romance happening. This is for you. There's also a really great afterword where they talk about the significance of these poems and why Walt Whitman hid them originally and kind of how they were found, and it's super, super interesting read. The next book I have is a romance. Now, okay, I haven't quite finished this yet. I'm a good chunk into it and I'm loving it so far. It's One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston, and I really, really love this. They did such a great job with this. I read Red, White, and Royal Blue, which is another thing that I would recommend for springtime. Romance is a genre that I struggle with, but I will forever read anything that Casey McQuiston writes. I love their writing. This one is a sapphic love story, and we have this girl who's just moved to New York, and she meets this woman on the train, on the subway, and turns out she is kind of stuck in time. There's a little bit of a mystery to solve as well in here, which I am so far really enjoying. Definitely a new beginnings type story because she's moving to a new city, starting at a new school, and she's also having this romance happen as well. So definitely recommend this guy. I want to briefly talk about Red, White, and Royal Blue. It is one of my favorite romances of all time. I gave it 5 stars. It is following the Prince of England and the President of the United States' son, her son, and their little romance that happens. It is absolutely beautiful. You get to see them showing each other their favorite things and starting this romance. It kind of reads like old-timey letters to each other because they're corresponding through email most of the time. And it's just a really beautiful story. It really warmed my heart, and I think it's a perfect read for spring. Something that's maybe a little controversial for spring is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is one of my favorite books, and I was considering whether to put this in spring or fall, and I think it's more spring to me because we're talking about creation. That feels very springy to me. We're creating a monster. There's also a lot of nature imagery in this, and it is a huge part of the Gothic story is this juxtaposition of this kind of overwhelming nature and then the people's lives. There's a couple of good thunderstorms in here. If you haven't read Frankenstein, it's a really accessible classic. It is one of my favorite classics of all time. My copy is like super written in, and I've written multiple papers on this. I just love this story. Don't need to wait until fall for a spooky story. Pick this one up in spring. I will never shut up about this book. I love the Poppy War. Please read it. I was struggling to figure out what season to put this in, but again, it's the story of someone starting over with a new life, with new opportunities, She's learning all of these things about herself. We go through multiple seasons in the book, but to me, it just feels spring. If you don't know what the Poppy War is, let me introduce you. You need this in your life. Our main character's name is Rin, and she's studying for this test that will get her into a super prestigious military school where she can go for free and kind of turn her life around because she is a war orphan. There's magic in this, but otherwise we're pretty historically accurate with the wars that we're seeing. The country it's set in, where it's closely based on China. We're following a war between China and Japan. They have different names in the book, but it is very historically accurate to this time period and the wars and the battles that are happening. I just love this book. If you're looking for fantasy to start off your spring, definitely pick this one up. My pitch for this is if you like to play in dirt as a kid, this book is for you. If you don't like coming of age stories, I don't either, and I still gave this 5 stars and absolutely loved it. Kai is an amazing character. She's living alone in the marsh, basically raising herself, trying to figure out her place in the world, and she loves nature, and she's kind of documenting everything in the marsh. There's also some romance in here and trying to figure out relationships and what's healthy for her. There's also an unexplained death. We have a little mystery happening, and the ending of this was incredible. I loved it so much. Where else would you want to be in spring than in the North Carolina marsh? Loved this. I think you will too. Now I have a weird one for you. Follow Me to Ground is a super weird story. Ada and her dad are not quite human, and they are curing humans of disease. They're basically magically opening them up and pulling out whatever sickness they have. There is some romantic element to this. This also reminded me a lot of Frankenstein. So, if you like Frankenstein, this is a good pick. If you like this, try Frankenstein. Lots of rainstorms, lots of nature, lots of thinking about what it means to be born or created. Screams spring to me. Could also be a summer read, but I think it fits more in spring. I have to explain myself for this one. You know how it's spring? Many of you may be spring cleaning. How about spring cleaning up after your sister who's a serial killer? My sister's a serial killer. This woman's sister has all of these boyfriends and she starts killing them. And originally her sister thinks that this is an accident and they tried to do something to her and she, self-defense, ended up killing them. So she's kind of cleaning up after them, but it keeps happening. She goes, is my sister a serial killer? Read to find out. So if you want a little edge to your spring cleaning this year, this is a good one. Okay, this is one of my favorite memoirs of all time. This is Rat Girl by Kristen Hirsch. I can't tell you why this feels like spring to me, but it does. If you're looking for a memoir to read in the spring, pick this one up. This book discusses motherhood and mental illness, and she also talks a lot about music. Kristen Hirsch is the lead singer for a band called Throwing Muses, and she's talking about that time in her life, trying to get that off the ground. It covers 1 year of her life, and it's an extremely pivotal year of her life. It just feels like a spring read to me. I definitely recommend you pick this up. I just have a few more to tell you about. Next, maybe an unconventional pick, Animal Farm by George Orwell. Let me tell you, this screams spring. We're on a farm. We've got new beginnings for the animals. If you don't know, Animal Farm is a super short, very impactful classic where the animals of a farm overthrow the humans. They kick them out and they try to do socialism and it doesn't go to plan. The pigs become problematic. That's all I'll say. I also think this cover is hilarious. Look at them glare at each other. It's great. It's Animal Farm. If you haven't read it, now's the time. You want to get out of a reading slump? It's super quick. Sit outside in your hammock and read Animal Farm. Great vibes. The last two I have remind me a lot of each other. We have Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna McGuire. This is a part of a series. I believe there are like 5+ books now. I just picked up the second one, which I'm very excited to read. But again, we have a new beginning story. This series follows children who go to secret worlds. We're talking like Narnia, things like that. And then when they come back and they can't get back to their world, there is a home that they all go to work through that trauma. I really loved this. It feels very spring because we have these new beginnings, because all of these children are trying to start over. They're still mourning the loss of these worlds that they used to live in, and they're also trying to pick up the pieces of their lives from before. This one also vaguely has some Frankenstein-y elements in it as well. I'm noticing a theme. If you did like this, then I would suggest that you pick up Watch Over Me by Nina LaCour. Our main character, Mila, has just aged out of the foster care system. She just graduated from high school, and she goes to basically be an intern on this farm. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere a little bit. So she's gonna go teach children on this farm. And there are little ghosties on the farm. This feels so spring to me. We are healing from trauma. We are relearning how to be happy and safe. There's a little bit of a spooky element to this, but it is so, so wholesome. If you're looking for a warm hug from a ghost, this is the book for you. And if you loved this, I would recommend that you pick up Every Heart a Doorway. I have 3 more to tell you about, which I don't have physically. How to Not Die Alone. I thought I would hate this, which is why I picked it up as an audiobook and did not purchase a copy. Let me tell you, I will be purchasing a copy. This is the best self-help book I have ever read, I think. Yes, that's an accurate statement. This book is written by the person who runs relationship sciences at Hinge, the dating app. This book is so full of science and studies and research about what qualities you need in a lifelong partner. And like I said earlier, I'm picking up a physical copy of this because I want to look back at certain chapters. It is springtime. I'm trying to get up the courage to start dating again. And this book was what I needed. It talks about how to navigate the apps, how to meet someone in person if you are like me and really struggle with the apps. It talks about what things you should be looking for in a long-term partner and basically calls you out on some of your shit and tells you what things you need to let go of and gives you actual meaningful steps that you can take at every single point in your relationship. It goes through not only the before a relationship part, but deciding whether or not to stay with someone, making decisions to move in or get engaged or get married, and how to navigate all of those steps. It's basically like your guide to intimate relationships, and I was really pleasantly surprised by how inclusive it was. Spring equals romance in my brain, so this was exactly what I needed. Next, we have a very fun, very silly read, which is The Princess Bride. If you're looking for something to bring to a beach, if it's warm enough where you live, or if you're looking for something to transport you to where it's warmer, if you're still in a part of the world where it is still chilly, I recommend reading The Princess Bride. I love, love, love the film, and this book is exactly the same tone as the film is, but it just has more in it. You get to learn more of the characters' backstories and what happens to them off screen, and the way that it's written is so clever. The author really makes you believe that this land and this world is real. And once you're done reading, you can go watch the movie. This is a book that I read at the beach, in the bath, outside in a hammock. My copy is very, very beat up, and I ended up giving it to my friend so that he could read it. Lots of romance, new beginnings, being outside. I just love The Princess Bride. If you love the movie, you will definitely love the book. Those are my spring recommendations. I hope you found something to pick up as the weather turns nice and warm. Please let me know what you're reading this spring and if you're excited to pick up any of these. If you liked this video, I think you'll like this one. And if you'd like to stick around for more reading recommendations, please consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. I love making videos like this. I will see you next Friday. Bye.